What's this though?
Russian and Ukrainian officials are in Turkey today for the first round of direct peace talks since the early days of the war. Vladimir Putin himself proposed the talks last Sunday, but he's declined to show up, despite President Zelensky offering to meet him in person. As a result, President Trump isn't there either. Well, let's speak.
They said, yeah, fuck it.
To our international editor, Emma Murphy,
Ow.
who's in Kyiv. Emma, we've had
Kyiv or Kiev? You're confusing me, love.
Numerous attempts at peace talks before. Is there any reason to think these will be more successful?
I think probably and sadly not. This has been something that's been massively discussed, these talks, over the past week since they were proposed by...
Look at that fucking art. But do you see that awesome building behind her? Look at that. What is that? Gold domes and stuff.
...by President Putin in the early hours of Sunday morning. But the reality is, for all the talk, I don't think there's going to be any big shift on the ground.
Chilling on
It's
major
been evident
desks.
that there has been a
making choices. And what are they doing?
degree of reticence by the Russians to really
What
put
are they up
forward
to
their
there?
strongest negotiating team. Of course, President Zelensky says the only person that can negotiate on the part of Russia is President Putin. He's certainly not there. And the team that has gone, although seasoned and senior diplomats, they are not at the top level of Russian politics. So I think there is a sense, certainly on the Russian part, that this isn't something that they're massively committed to, although the Ukrainians are desperate to put out that image that they are there in force. The president is in Turkey, as are very senior Ukrainian politicians. So they might want something to happen, but the reality is, I think they and everybody else accepts that it is incredibly unlikely at this point.
And yet President Putin proposed the talks. What do you think his strategy is here?
Well,
doesn't the geezer wear suits? I've always recognised that geezer.
If we remember when he proposed those talks, it was just a few hours after the big summit here in
anti-suits.
Kyiv at the weekend, where
Look! Just there like he's about to meet you in the back alley and all that.
we saw 4 world leaders joining with
Fucking
President
hell.
Zelensky in person and more than 30 other world
It must hate suits and shit. It must be anti-suits, but it's an anti-suit movement. Man's got like military boots on. Why? What is it? Is it because the country's at war? I don't get it. Mad.
leaders joining online to bring together this so-called coalition of the willing. And as a result of that meeting, there was the proposal that was supported by the United States
Coalition of the willing. Yeah.
and in some ways proposed earlier in the month by the United States of this 30-day unconditional ceasefire. And the talk on Saturday was all about the fact that if that wasn't in place by Monday, there would be huge sanctions brought to bear on
Huge.
Russia. They were described by President Macron as not business as usual sanctions.
Okay.
And I think probably the proposal of the talks was a deliberate attempt by the Russian leader to try and sidestep all conversation about that ceasefire. And it seems to have actually worked really rather well. The ceasefire didn't come into place. The sanctions of yet haven't come into place.
Right.
And there is no great pressure being brought to bear on the Russians, certainly not publicly and certainly not by the United States, to try and get around the table and actually have meaningful negotiations.
Well, Putin just said, nah, I'm not going.
President Trump, as you say, is not going to be there. Do we have an idea of what the US is now pushing for in these talks?
Well, in a way, the US is only pushing in the background because these talks are being hosted by Turkey and they are direct, in theory, between Ukraine and Russia. And I think probably...
That's mad, isn't it? It's like, what? So, I don't know how they get I don't know how they do these things. It's like hosted by Turkey. Yeah, it's crazy.
the US's position would be the same as others, which is
Trump doing the signal. Did you see the signal? Trump's signal.
in Russia. And I think probably the US's position would be the same as others, which is that they want to see some form of peace. That's certainly the public position that they are taking. But they are not being particularly demonstrative when it comes to trying to force that.
Demonstrative. What does that mean? I must know. I'm guessing that's how it is. Demonstrative. A person unrestrained in showing feelings, especially for those of affection. serving as conclusive evidence of something. A demonstrative demeanor. Give it to me in a sentence. Characterized by or given to an open exhibition or expression of one's emotions, attitudes, especially of love and affection. So yeah, it goes. I think the way they choose to use the language, because the language that they choose to use is very important. So demonstrative, is that right? I think I've said it right.
Demonstrative.
Demonstrative. Is that what she said? Let's go back to it. This is why I've got internet.
Not being particularly demonstrative when it
Demonstrative, yeah. So it's clever, the sort of language that they use. I'd never heard this word before.
Demonstrative.
I never heard demonstrative before in my life, but as we can see, it's leaning towards feelings and affection, yeah. And as we saw earlier in this, it was, what was it? The coalition of what? The willing. It's clever.
comes to trying to force that peace.
Yeah, coalition of the willing. Yeah, it's really clever. You got to peep these things.
The public position that they are taking, but they are not being particularly demonstrative when it comes to trying to force that peace.
Yeah, so, yeah, okay.
I think in terms of Ukraine, there is a very clear policy on where they want to go with these negotiations. They want to see a 30-day ceasefire put into place before any talks continue. And it will be interesting to see what happens when the negotiations actually get underway. Will it be that the Ukrainian delegation go in and ask whether or not there is the possibility of that ceasefire, and when they are told no, as likely they will be, they leave the talks? Or will they be willing to say, OK, we'll set aside our demand for that 30-day ceasefire and actually have these conversations despite not getting what we wanted, but because we really want to see peace in this whole process.
You're in Ukraine right now, where, of course, the missiles are still falling. What is the state of the war right now?
The missiles still... Where? Probably on another part, isn't it?
Well, overnight there were multiple drone attacks and also ballistic missile attacks on different parts of Ukrainian territory. And although the attacks on the cities are not quite as strong as they have been in previous weeks, we have had some quieter nights. The front line continues, and those cities and towns on the front line continue to take a real
stop
pounding.
this, man.
But you know, Russia are not actually making huge gains at the moment. They are.
I think they're pretending when they say stuff like this. To correlate it correctly, we would have to see Russian sources and see Ukraine sources inside on the front line, and Russian forces to be on the front line. But obviously they've got an agenda against Russia, this coalition. So they're obviously going to be shining it in a bad light. But I would suspect it's not. I think Russia would just be like taming itself, honestly. It's just doing this because it said it would. If you do this, it said in 2014, he had this criteria, and he's been begging to join NATO. He's been begging to join NATO, but the whole reason NATO was designed, I've said this many times, it's known history. The main reason NATO was designed was really to take care of Russia. That was during that time. So yeah, they will never let Russia join. It's always against Russia or the superpowers. Or China. But yeah, it's strange.
Making some incremental moves forward, but they aren't actually taking any big swathes of territory. However, they are building up in different parts of their front line, and there is a sense that they will try and push forward and take more land before they actually start to properly think about negotiating a peace. And in a way, why would they bother at the moment? They haven't got any great pressure on them to do that. And they are not in a position where they desperately need to. And until that shifts, I think there's very scant chance of any real change in the situation.
And what about the Ukrainian
I told them, like, don't do that, and then they done it, and then...
people who've endured years now of being bombarded? How would you characterize Ukrainian morale?
I think Ukrainian morale is still reasonably high. Every time you get something like we've seen this week in diplomatic manoeuvring, it seems to slightly raise the spirits and give a hope that, you know, this might be the moment that Ukraine can really make a smart move and have a big impact on the situation.
Yeah, no doubt.
they are very committed to this war in that they do not want to lose
Group
their
chat is
territory.
going
They do
off,
not
boy.
want to have
Put it on
gone through
silent.
what they've gone through since 2014 and more acutely since 2022 without some sense of success. But I think there is also a weariness in the population at large about this, how long it is going to go on, how big the losses are going to be. But that does not equate to wanting it to stop at all costs. And the Ukrainian people are still very much committed to trying to win this war, or at least come out of it with some sense of victory and not a sense of defeat.
Well, yeah. So yeah, they're still busy with all of that. Still very busy with all of that, man. I you know, good luck to them. Honestly, good luck to them. I think like, yeah, man, whatever, man. Good luck to them, man. Just like good luck to them. This is a tiny one, but what? Gaza, 60 people killed in Israeli strikes overnight. Fucking
Officials
hell.
in Gaza say that at least 60 people have been killed by Israeli military strikes today. They said that most of the victims, including women and children, were killed in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza in airstrikes that hit homes and tents. The dead included a local journalist who worked for a Hamas-run radio station who was killed along with 11 members of his family.
Jesus. Well, God help us. UK talks about setting up migration return hubs, says PM Starmer. Oh, really? Yo, Weez?
Yes, we are in talks with a number of countries.
Yes, we are in talks. I swear he speaks from his nose. Yes, we are in talks with Do you have any cocaine? I'm only joking, fucking hell.
Yes, we are in talks with a number of countries about return hubs. And I see them as a really important innovation. And that is consistent with the work that we've done in relation to UK-Albania reduction in numbers, the work that we've done on law enforcement.
Okay, so that with in regards to Albania.
Arrangements with other countries, the return agreements that we've put in place.
Return agreements.
A record number of returns. And
So what do you mean return agreement? That sounds like a loan. Sounds like a player loan. Well, if he doesn't perform too well, we're going to have to return him to you. You're going to have to give us refund. We're keeping the receipt. What the fuck?
what I'd like to do is add return hubs to that. We are in those talks, and therefore, at the appropriate time, I'll be able to give you further details in relation to it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, you heard it at the appropriate time. That one's good. That good one. Good one, guys. That yeah. Reform is needed. It's true, bro.